Something about the 2026 World Cup does not feel right. Not because of the stadiums or the travel or the politics everyone expected. Because hidden inside one rule, one pause, one supposedly harmless break in play, there may be a lie big enough to shake the most powerful organization in football. And according to this story, Lionel Messi saw it before almost anyone else did. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will understand why a stoppage that was sold as protection may become the spark for the biggest player rebellion FIFA has faced in decades. The official explanation sounded responsible, even compassionate. Hydration breaks, FIFA said, would protect players from extreme summer heat during a massive tournament stretched across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. On paper, it made sense. 3 countries, dozens of cities, punishing schedules, climate swings, afternoon kickoffs, bodies pushed to the edge by pressure, travel, and expectation. How could anyone argue against safety? But then came the detail that changes everything. The breaks did not appear only in brutal heat. They appeared in cooler conditions too, in matches where the temperature did not seem to justify the interruption, in games where the stoppage arrived with almost mechanical precision. And every time play stopped, the cameras kept rolling. Sponsors filled the silence, broadcasters filled the screen, money filled the gap. Think about that for a moment. A measure introduced in the language of welfare was also creating perfectly timed commercial windows, extra inventory, extra branding, extra exposure, extra revenue. Player safety on the surface, advertising underneath. Safety on the surface, advertising underneath. That contradiction is the heart of this entire story. Were the hydration breaks really about protecting athletes, or were they quietly becoming one more way to monetize every breath, every delay, every second the game could be made to wait? And if the players themselves started asking that question, what would happen next? In this version of events, the first man to feel that something was off was not an executive, not a consultant, not a television insider. It was Messi. The greatest player of his era, entering what many believe will be his final World Cup, had seen too much football to ignore a pattern once it revealed itself. He knew the rhythm of elite matches. He knew when a pause felt necessary and when it felt inserted. And he knew that when a rule keeps helping the same people over and over, it stops looking accidental. So the concern grew quietly, not with dramatic press conferences, not with angry social media posts, but in conversations, private ones, between players, captains, coaches, and staff members who noticed the same strange pattern repeating itself from city to city. Why here? Why now? Why in weather that did not demand it? Why did the pause always seem to land exactly where the commercial machine could use it most? That is when the story becomes more dangerous. Because the accusation here is not that FIFA created hydration breaks out of thin air. Heat is real. Player fatigue is real. Medical concerns are real. The accusation is something subtler, and maybe even more unsettling. That a legitimate concern may have been expanded, standardized, and enforced beyond obvious need because it also happened to be profitable. And once that suspicion enters the room, it changes the room. It changes how every future stoppage looks. It changes how every sponsor logo feels. It changes how every official explanation sounds. Before we go deeper, if this is the kind of coverage you have been looking for, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what comes next is where the entire balance of power begins to shift. According to the plot of this unfolding showdown, Messi did not move alone. He listened. Then he compared notes. Then he did what only a figure of his stature could do. He turned private doubt into organized pressure. Germany, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, France. Different histories, different federations, different internal politics, different ambitions, but one growing concern. If these breaks were truly for safety, then why was the money flowing only one way? Messi's answer in this story was both simple and devastating. Do not just complain about the breaks. Turn the breaks into a test. If FIFA insists the stoppages are necessary, fine. Then every dollar generated during those interruptions should be redirected toward the people supposedly being protected by them. Training grounds, recovery centers, medical staff, cooling technology, travel conditions, facilities for national teams asked to carry the physical burden of a global tournament. Sit with that for a second, because it is brilliant. If FIFA accepts the proposal, it effectively admits that the breaks generate significant money, enough money to materially improve player conditions. And if FIFA rejects it, then the question becomes impossible to avoid. If this is really about welfare, why not let the welfare side benefit? That is the trap. A political trap, a moral trap, a public relations trap set by the one player on earth powerful enough to make billions of fans pay attention. And do not miss the timing. Messi is not just any veteran walking into 2026. He is the face of a generation, the symbol of triumph, pressure, sacrifice, and endurance, and possibly the biggest star entering the final chapter of his World Cup story. That gives this conflict weight that spreadsheets and boardrooms cannot contain. But that is just the beginning, because once a coalition forms, the threat is no longer symbolic. It becomes operational. It becomes visible. It becomes something the cameras cannot ignore. And now we arrive at the most explosive possibility of all. What happens if the players refuse to comply? Not permanently, not recklessly, but deliberately, visibly, together. Imagine a match stopping on schedule, the fourth official ready, the broadcast prepared, the sponsors cued, and the players simply waving it off. No circle around the touchline, no obedient march into a monetized pause, just a collective decision to keep football moving. Can you imagine the image? Millions watching live, commentators scrambling, executives panicking, Infantino forced to respond in real time, not from behind a polished podium, but in the chaos of a moment he can no longer script. And that is why this story matters beyond one tournament rule. Because it asks a larger question about modern sport. Who is the game really built for now? The players whose bodies absorb the cost? The fans who buy the dream? Or the institutions that have learned to monetize every interruption inside it? Pull back further and the picture grows darker. Because this is no longer just about hydration breaks. It is about the creeping transformation of football itself. The slow conversion of a living sport into a sequence of managed commercial opportunities. Kickoff becomes property. Celebration becomes content. Emotion becomes inventory. And even recovery, even water, even breath can become a product if nobody pushes back. That is what makes the Messi angle so powerful. He is not presented here as a man chasing headlines. He is presented as something far more dangerous to a system under suspicion. A legend with credibility. A champion with leverage. A global icon with nothing left to prove on the pitch, and therefore everything to say about what the pitch has become. And yet the real pressure may fall on FIFA President Gianni Infantino, because every route out looks costly. Approve the revenue-sharing idea, and critics will say the breaks were a business model all along. Reject it, and the refusal itself becomes evidence in the court of public opinion. Delay, and the suspicion only grows. Deny everything, and the next enforced stoppage will be watched like a crime scene. This is why the ending of this story feels so charged. Not because we know exactly what will happen, but because every possible outcome reveals something. If the breaks stay, we will ask who truly benefits. If the players resist, we will learn how much power they still possess. If FIFA bends, the facade cracks. If FIFA hardens, the confrontation grows. So when the 2026 World Cup arrives, do not just watch the goals. Watch the pauses. Watch the officials. Watch the temperature, the timing, the cameras, the sponsor boards, the body language. Watch Messi. Because if this narrative proves true, then his final World Cup will not just be about legacy. It will be about resistance, about drawing a line, about forcing the biggest institutions in football to answer a question they never wanted asked in public. And maybe that is the real exposure here. Not one rule, not one break, not one broadcast deal, but a battle over who owns the soul of the sport. What do you think? Is Messi protecting players or exposing a machine that forgot why football matters? Comment below, like this video, subscribe for more investigations like this, and remember this final line. When the game stops, always ask who gets paid first, right now.